So after making the last video, I went back and I looked at the state standards for them because they have adjusted them a little bit since last year. And I just wanted to make sure, because in the previous video I told you we only have to deal with square roots or perfect squares in Math 1. And when I went back and read that, apparently I am incorrect. It is perfect squares and perfect cubes now. So I think last year it was just perfect squares, if I remember correctly. But either way, you can talk about perfect cubes. You're still going to get them to come out to nice numbers. So in your notes, go ahead and add these. Perfect cube roots. The cube root of 1 is going to be 1. The cube root of 8, which is 2. Cube root of 27, which is 3. Cube root of 64, which is 4. And the cube root of 125 is 5. And that would just kind of keep continuing. Again, these numbers come from the fact that 1 to the third would give us 1, which is the number of the radical, and 2 to the third, which would give us 8, or 3 to the third, which gives us that 27, or 4 to the third, which gives us that 64, and 5 to the third, which gives you 125. So that's where these numbers are coming from. So we could have ones that are looking at perfect cubes, so we might have something like the cube root of 27, for instance, which we can easily see is just going to be a 3. So what we need to add in there is some of these perfect cubes. So there was an example. Let's try one that has some variables to it. Again, if it has a number right here that's considered something other than a square root, so this is a cube root, as it has a 3 there. So let's say I had the cube root of 8x to the third and y to the 6, let's say. Well, I can do the number part easy. The cube root of 8, which is going to give us a 2. Now, where we have to be careful is when we're dealing with a cube root, you're basically looking at how many groups of 3 will an x to the third fit into. Well, x to the third, basically I can fit 3 x's into x to the third. So instead of dividing by 2, kind of like what we did before with square roots, it's actually how many groups of 3 are in there. So in this x to the third, there's only one group of 3. So that's an x to the first. Or in this y value, how many groups of 3 are into a 6? Well, there's 2 groups of 3 into a 6. So we're going to practice some more of those variables and kind of look at it. It's not half of the amount, kind of like what it was in the squares. In a cube root, it's basically how many groups of 3 do you have in there? Well, I have one group of 3 for my x's and 2 groups of 3 for my y's. So if you need anything from the screen, go ahead and get it, because I'm going to change the screen on it. Alright, so let's say if I had a cube root of 125, we're going to say x to the 9th and y to the 12th. And then we'll do a cube root of 27, x to the 3rd, y to the 15th, let's say. Again, these are all going to be perfect cubes that we're going to be able to go through and simplify to it. So, at the beginning of this first one, the cube root of 125 is 5. And now for the x to the 9th, how many groups of 3 are into 9? Well, there's 3 groups of 3. We have 3, then 6, then 9. So there's 3 groups of 3 that go into 9. And for the y to the 12th, figure out how many groups of 3 go into there. So there's going to be 4 of them. What some other students have noticed in the past, or another way to think of this, if this doesn't make any sense as to what we're doing, what students will do sometimes is they'll realize that if you take this exponent and divide it by the number here, you get the same result. Just like 9 divided by 3 is 3. Or 12 divided by 3 is 4. That kind of helps them to figure that out. So I'll do the same thing in the second example. And a cube root of 27, which is 3. And then we're looking at a cube root of x to the third. Well, how many groups of 3 go into there? Just one of them. Or, and you can do 3 divided by 3, which comes out to 1. Same kind of idea with the y's. How many groups of 3 go into 15, which would be 5. Or, you can kind of think about 15 divided by 3, which gives us that 5 value. Okay. So make sure you can simplify square roots as well as cube roots.